Hey YouTube, it's been a while since I've done a badminton racket review, but I've had some requests to do a Li-Ning N9 racket review. It's my only racket that I haven't reviewed yet. So as you see here, I have three rackets. This is basically my line that I use when I play. But I did a review on my N90 Woods, which is what I use primarily for singles. It's a heavier racket, and it's not as flexible and light and responsive for doubles, so it's definitely a singles only racket. I don't use this for doubles whatsoever. So I put that there. And then we have the N93. This has been my go-to racket for a long time. It's a great balanced racket, and at the club you can see a lot of people use this for singles and doubles, and it's a great all-rounder. So it's a great racket for both singles and doubles, and that's what I use it for. Some days I just prefer to use this over that for singles, and then some days I prefer to use this over the N9 for doubles. So great all-round racket, or slash backup racket. And the N9 is now my primary doubles racket. I used to use the N93 for my doubles, but after playing with the N9, I feel like it just has a slight edge over the N93 in a doubles scenario, because it is a little bit more flexible, so it's slightly more responsive, and it still has enough heavy weight to get some pretty decent backcourt smashes. I'm not really a strong backcourt player, so having a lighter racket for me is better, because I'm playing usually mid-front anyways, at the front, or trying to set stuff up, rather than a guy that kills and finishes the setup by smashing, because I'm not actually a very good smasher relative to advanced players that I play with. So those are my three ranges. Basically, the N9 I use for doubles, basically strictly. The N93 I use for doubles and singles, depending sort of on my mood. And the N90 is strictly a singles racket, and this probably gets used the least. So the N9 is a recent acquisition for me, and I'm very happy with this racket. It's got some pretty nice design. It's very it stands out because it's black and has very nice gold accents along the head and the shaft, and it's got a very unique colorway. I really like it. It's very classy looking racket, and like, I string all my rackets with a black string, and I think that matches this the design quite good. So this is more of a traditional racket design in terms of the Li-Ning line. So you don't see any air vents or anything like that on their new N99, for example. And the head shape is very traditional, just, you know, your rounded out head shape basically. They're all TB Nano, but they do have a different sort of text on their technology. If you look at these two rackets, they are slightly different in proportion. The N9 head is slightly smaller than the N93. Okay, so it's not as wide and it's not as tall. The N9 is identical. The N9 also is a different head shape from the N90. The N90 is more rounded, so it's more like an oval. and I mean it's more rounded, sorry, more like a circle, and the N9 is more oval, so it's narrower at the base. So you have less hitting area. So this is probably actually even less of a forgiving racket when it comes to shuttle placement on the head. You need to be probably more accurate with this racket in terms of shuttle placement because you don't have so much range on the head itself, so much surface area. So if you're hitting in the wrong spot, you're probably going to lose a lot of power, or the shot's going to be really inaccurate. So you need to make sure you're really hitting in the sweet spot, which is always going to be close to the center, compared to these other two Li-Ning rackets. The racket, as I mentioned, is lighter and it feels lighter, and it definitely is more flexible than N93, and obviously it's way more flexible than the N90. The N90 is it's not a very stiff racket, but it is stiffer. The N90 is very heavy compared to the N93 and especially the N9. So the N9 is a very agile racket, which is what makes it great for doubles. It's very agile, but in that situation where you're sort of caught out and you got to do a backhand, or you're really active at the net and you're playing another really good net player, it's really flexible and agile. And if you're sort of tall like myself, when you're playing the net, you don't need to be so far forward. You can be a couple feet back. So if someone puts up with this racket, because it's so light, you can catch those really fast. So you can catch that sort of mistake that they made by driving too low or driving too tight to the court and not wide enough. And even if you're not tall, if you have a long arm span, or you're flexible, or you have a hop, then you can sort of hop and smash, and smack it down. And you can't do that with this because this is so much heavier. Even in this demonstration, it's very clumsy compared to the N9. So that's where racket design and the specs of racket really make a big difference. And it's even more pronounced in stuff coming from the back, because my backhand is actually quite weak. An advanced player probably won't see much of a difference forward and back, but even at the most advanced players, you'll never be as strong on your forehand as your backhand. So that's when the backhand flexibility and forgiveness of a more flexible racket and lighter racket comes in handy. Because and if someone's driving to your forehand and doesn't drive, so they really need to be a lot more precise now. So they need to be a couple more inches further away from you, or a couple more inches higher. But then if it's a little bit too high and you're playing in the right game, then your partner can move up a little bit and just, they'll be right behind you, ready to capitalize on that mistake. So this is definitely, like I said, it's more for a front court player. But having said that, there are obviously going to be times when you get switched up. So at the back, how does this racket perform? It's not going to be the best at the back, for sure, because it doesn't have that stiffness and it doesn't have that weight. But smashing is actually one of the most difficult swings to master, if not the most difficult. So especially if you're not strong yet, and you haven't really worked that perfect smash where the sound just reverberates and it's got a really deep pow to it, you're probably better off you probably actually smash faster and better with a more forgiving racket like this. And you really won't suffer at the back, especially if you're good enough to run a higher tension. This is still the top of the line model series. It's the N series, so it can take 30 or more pounds. But having said that, the stringer really makes a big difference, and I say this always on my comments, is that the specifications for a lot of rackets are 20 pounds max. I've spoken to an official Li-Ning stringer that strings for a provincial team in China, and she tells me that a lot of players actually string above 30 pounds, but you need the right stringer to do it. And there is a big difference between stringers. If some stringers just don't know what they're doing. As a backcourt, all the advantages of the front court will apply to the back. So again, if you moved one way and the bird went the other way, and you sort of need to have a sloppy sort of return, or if I'm usually a little bit more on my weak side, so I can sort of just do overheads. I try not to use my back. When you're playing doubles, you generally don't use your back as much anyways. You shouldn't, because that means you've been caught off guard. If you are in the situation where you're sort of caught off, right, or if I've been pinching left when I should have been and pinching right, or you're playing a really good player and they predict what you're doing, having that flexibility to sort of you can move your grip up and then sort of just drop it, or it's much easier to slice, or even you can clear it much better because it has that snap. So I'm going to compare these two. I'm not going to compare the N90 because that's really a singles racket. Where this excels, this does okay, and where this doesn't excel, the N93 will excel a bit more. So the areas that this excels is obviously going to be response and flexibility, and where it doesn't excel is basically outright power, and that's where this racket excels when you're comparing the two. But then, having said that, I want to be really clear that I'm not splitting hairs. It is a clear winner for flexibility and speed for this one, and a clear winner for power for this one. But having said that, they're not really far apart either. This racket still has good flexibility and good speed. It's a much stiffer. It is much stiffer. These two, this one compared to the N9. The N93 is a much stiffer shaft than the N9, but it's still not as stiff as, say, an N99. This is designed as a singles racket, okay, first and foremost, so I want to put that out there. This is a pretty stiff racket for a doubles play. So if you're a backcourt, or if you're good at backcourt, I would probably recommend the N90 because it still has very good, if you're a pretty good player and you're using these type of rackets, you should already have decent all-around coverage. But if you're more of a smasher and you kill, the N90 for sure. I don't even consider the N9 at that point, because you will get frustrated with the N9 with the lack of power it has on the smashes. But with the N93, you can definitely punish people when you'll be super satisfied with how this racket smashes because of the stiffness. Will you ever be let down at the front of the court? Arguable, because I've been playing with this with doubles for so long. I didn't really ever feel it was really letting me down at the front. But then when I switched to the N9, it showed me just how much more relaxed I was at the front and quick, and I felt more capable at the front, and then and especially and mid court as well. And I felt like I can intercept much quicker, and a lot of doubles play is really intercepting, especially punishing bad bad net shots that are a bit too high. You want to pounce, and you want to have that speed to come down on them, right? Come across and intercept bad drive. That's going to be my review on N9. I try and be as objective as I can be for the N9. In conclusion, I really think this is a great racket. It's really fast, and it's just really fast, very controllable, really easy to use. But it's not like to the point where those really like the entry and mid-grade rackets that if you do smash with those, they don't go fast. Like if you smash with this still, it is still good, right? I'm not saying it's horrendous. That definitely it is good. And if it's probably, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a good smasher to begin with, so a lot of it probably has to do with just my technique. And if you're an advanced player, or probably a better than me intermediate advanced player, you'll probably do really good still smashing this with this racket, and yet retain all the advantages of having that flexibility. So it is, at the end of the day, it's a great racket. I know a lot of racket feel now comes down to personal preference. Even me, sometimes I'm split between, you know, do I want to use this one, the N93, which is a little bit stiffer, and I've been using it for a while, and it really has a positive downward feel, and it really, when the bird hits the head, because the racket is, the shaft is stiffer, you really get that pow, and you can feel that power. Or do I want to play with this? You know, it depends on the day. I like both, right? And we're human, we're organic, so sometimes we'll change. So if I say you had to get your first racket, one racket, and you only had the budget for one high-end racket, I'd say get the N9, don't get the N93. It's easier to use, you can work into it, and as your skill increases, and say you save up, and you want to get something a little bit stiffer, and you want options, and you want to go for an N93, you can do that, or another brand, you can do that as well. So yeah, so that's my review of the turbocharging N9. It's been around for a while, this racket, and I think it's been around for a while for good reason as well. They don't just discontinue it as they come up with new models, because you can't. It's difficult to replicate. It definitely has its own feel, and a lot of people like it. And if you buy this racket, you will not be disappointed. If you like this video, please subscribe, and if you guys have any more requests for reviews on badminton stuff, I will try my hardest to fulfill your request. Thank you for watching.